Mac Ti Dao held Diu Bin's hand tightly. The two looked at each other deeply. Suddenly she bared her pretty little fangs. Quick as lightning, Mac Ti Dao bit Diu Bin's hand. He was in so much pain that he cried out. At this moment, Diu Bin's fingers were buzzing. Mac Ti Dao frowned and asked him, "Is this necessary?" Diu Bin just scratched his head and smiled, saying that it actually didn't hurt too much, it was just too sudden. She puffed her cheeks and crossed her arms angrily replied, "The pain was worth it. Who told you to bully me?" Diu Bin started sweating hearing that. Mac Ti Dao pretended to still be angry, broke up and said, "Give me your hand." He looked pitiful and held out his hand and said, "If you still want to bite, why aren't you angry yet?" At this moment, she bent down and gently kissed Diu Bin's hand. He was stunned by her sudden action. In the room, Le Suyen looked out the window to answer the phone and said to the other end, I understand." Le Suyen reached out to turn off the call. She turned back and reported to Mac Ton Tong that General Du called. He now discovered that he had been deceived. All the management rights of the corporation were in the hands of his younger brother. Mac Ton Tong sat at the table reading something, his head not looking up. It was Lang Van Fong's doing. At the window, Le Suyen shook his head. The relationship of the Lang family in Zedong was very complicated. It was impossible to investigate everything now. She bowed her head and continued, but General Du's younger brother was indeed acquainted with Lang Van Fong. Lang Van Fong probably wanted to hold all of Zedong's power before the elders made a decision. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, making Mac Ton Tong turn around. Le Suyen spoke. "Come in." The door opened. Someone stood there reporting, "The old man, Lang Van Fong, brought a gift, saying he was here to visit you." Le Suyen looked out the window next to him. Glancing at a car below, she said, "Lang Van Fong also bought a pink car. It seems he hasn't given up yet." Mac Ton Tong stood up and went out the door, unable to bear it and whined. He was really tired. In the living room of the Mac family, Lang Van Fong sat there with his mountain of gifts, speaking in a sweet voice, "Old Mac. These are meeting gifts that I chose myself. I hope you like it. I didn't understand the situation before, so I hope Old Mac doesn't take it to heart." Mac Ton Tong didn't pay attention to the things on the table and just said, "When your father and aunt came over here to talk about marriage, I made it very clear. I only have Ti Gao as my niece, so I absolutely do not want to turn her into a business tool." Lang Van Fong smiled and raised his hand to say, "So today I came to nurture my relationship with Ti Gao." Hearing that, Mac Ton Tong turned around and said to Lang Van Fong, "Then I'll tell the butler to take you to the flower garden. Ti Gao is playing there." Outside under the clear blue sky, Lang Van Fong crossed his arms, thinking to himself, I have money and I'm good. I'm just a girl. How can I make things difficult for me?" In front, the bodyguard looked back and said to Lang Van Fong, "Mr. Lang, please come this way." There was laughter, "Ha ha." Lang Van Fong suddenly stopped and looked towards the source of the sound. Ti Gao is happily sitting on the swing, "Ha ha ha." Push up, behind. Diu Bin is now reaching out with both hands in front to respond to my words. "Okay, you sit firmly on the bottom." Lang Van Fong turned to them, "Miss Mac." On the other side, Diu Bin pushed the swing with his bare hands. Mac Ti Gao heard someone calling her. She looked back. Lang Van Fong stood there looking at Ti Gao and thought, I'm so handsome. How can an 18-year-old girl make things difficult for me?" Ti Gao looked puzzled. She asked, "Who are you?" Lang Van Fong held the pink car lock in both hands. He said in a polite voice, "My name is Lang Van Fong. This is my meeting gift." Ti Gao was still sitting on the swing, looking at Lang Van Fong, waving his hands in front of him at the same time. "The first time we met, I couldn't accept such an expensive gift." Lang Van Fong held out the lock first, not giving up and said, "I specially chose this car for you. If you don't accept it, you won't show me any respect." Ti Gao awkwardly looked at the key in front of her. She hesitated, but Diu Bin suddenly stepped forward and took the lock from Lang Van Fong's hand. He looked at him with unkind eyes. "Ti Gao doesn't know how to drive yet, let me hold it for her." Lang Van Fong looked at Diu Bin and asked, "I said, this is a gift I gave to Ms. Mac. How did you get it? Suddenly, there was a cracking sound, and the keychain with Lang Vanfong's picture was pulled out. Du Bin used his hand to throw it away. Now the keychain Ti Gao had just given him had lost its keychain. Lang Vanfong couldn't help but feel sad when looking at that scene. Ti Gao was sitting on the swing and suddenly jumped down. She spoke softly, so let Du Bin take care of it. Next to him was Ti Gao. Du Bin twirled the thread in his hand. He turned his head and said to Lang Vanfong, "Do you have any other comments?" He responded with a smile on his face. If Ms. Mac believes him like that, then that's fine. I'm just afraid someone will be greedy and take that car away. At this time, Ti Gao hugged Du Bin's arm. It's okay. I believe Du Bin. Having said that, she turned to Du Bin who was blushing slightly. Before Lang Vanfong's look, she said, "Let's go." Mr. Du Bin, is it time for lunch? Lang Vanfong was like a clown and could only angrily look after them. In front, Ti Gao was still rambling. Last time I said I would have dinner with you, but as a result, I left right away. This time I can't leave halfway. Yes, Du Bin replied. Already. Lang Vanfong shook his head and returned to his appearance. He looked ahead. Du Bin, no wonder Mak Tontong defended you like that. It turns out it's because his nephew likes you. Lang Vanfong turned his head to look up and made a statement. Wait, tonight's martial arts competition? I will definitely kill you, right now at the Middle East mountain site. Inside the stage, the atmosphere was bustling. The audience was extremely crowded, all looking forward to the start below the stage. Among them was a chubby man who asked the slim man, "Did your family also send someone to come?" The other man immediately replied, "Yes, I think I saw Ben Hai also coming here." After listening, the chubby guy immediately pointed down to the stage and said, "Not only is it Ben Hai. Look, behind Zhang Trung's black boss, there is also Zetung's Du Thuong man." On the side of the stage through the glass of the seating room of today's martial arts competition, they actually appeared. The skinny guy saw this and was curious. I can understand when the black boss comes here, after all, he is also a member of the world. But aren't the Du family just ordinary business people, so why did they come to participate in this martial arts competition? The other person replied with nosy words, "Who knows?" At this time, in the room, there was a gangster with a scarred face laughing loudly and saying, "When is Tiu Du Bin coming? Long time no see." This man missed that boy very much. The waitress standing behind him immediately explained to him, "Please wait a moment. Tiu Du Bin will be here in a bit." The middle-aged man wearing sunglasses next to him immediately reminded him, "Speak thoughtfully. Don't embarrass Jiang Chung. I heard you went abroad. When did you come back?" That gangster immediately smiled proudly. "I tried to complete everything for this matter. With Tiu Du Bin, how could I be absent?" And then the stage lights were turned on. The two sides of the lights shined straight to the center of the stage, where the female host was about to start the martial arts competition. She raised the mic to begin speaking. "Welcome everyone to today's martial arts competition. I am MC Tran Tiu Thien." The gangster saw such an eye-catchingly beautiful MC. He was so covetous that he softly said, "She's so pretty, I want to take her back to Jiang Trung." The man next to him immediately explained the identity of the female MC. Tran Tiu Thien is the ex-wife of Cao Lao, Lang Vanfong's ex-girlfriend, and I heard that she and Tiu Du Bin are quite close. So, do you still want to take her back to Jiang Trung? The gangster immediately awkwardly gave up. Okay, just hearing that she knew she wasn't the type just now. Tran Tiu Thien's voice rang out on the stage again. The rules of the martial arts competition are very simple. We pair up the participants. Each person participates in a maximum of 5 competitions. If they lose 2 matches, they will be eliminated, and if they win 3 matches, they will continue. Then, right in the middle of the stage, a dim aura emitted. An object is pushed up and the loudspeaker announces the final rule. The winner of 3 matches can also challenge Tiu Du Bin. As long as he wins Tiu Du Bin, the final prize will belong to that person. Tran Tiu Thien playfully winked at the audience, said in a very cute tone, "There is only one prize, first come first served." All the participants here heard. After finishing the game, each person had a different mood waiting for the match to begin. This time, it was Lang Vanfong's subordinates who stood up to visit the VIP room. Everyone has already arrived. Why hasn't the organizer arrived yet? Are you looking down on us? The people around immediately became agitated in unison. That's right. That's really disrespectful. We came all the way from Zedong to treat us like that. Tran Tiu Thien did not care about this noisy group of people. She stood in the opposite room, through the transparent glass front, looking contemptuously at them with her presentation and words of comfort. Wait for someone to challenge Tiu Bin. Tiu Bin will appear. This place is Bin Hai. If you don't want to follow the rules, you can return to Jaedong right away. Lang Vanfong's subordinate had an unsightly look on his face as she scolded him. Is this the way you treat guests in Bin Hai? Old Man Black is not comfortable listening to outsiders' gossip. He hates saying that Jaedong people are really annoying. Everyone is waiting. It's not just a few people waiting. The man was so angry that his face turned purple. He glared at Boss Black, intending to scold him. Lang Vanfong quickly pretended to cough lightly to signal him to stop. This man was also considered to be quick to understand, so he awkwardly scratched his head to give in to him, then smiled and said, Old Man Black is right. I was too hasty. Sorry everyone. Above the stands, the sound of the loudspeaker was heard, and Tran Tiu Thien's voice was heard. If there are no more problems, then I declare, the martial arts competition begins. In addition to the dramatic noise of the martial arts competition outside, on this side there was the sound of a small, sharp fire. The cigarette was lit by someone on the smoking tile, and it started to catch fire, corroding the tip of the cigarette. Tru Kai raised his hand to smoke a cigarette, slowly exhaled from the cigarette butt, releasing smoke as he spoke. He looked to the side where someone was coming. Tran Tiu Thien approached and asked him why the master hadn't come yet. Tru Kai was in no hurry to open his mouth. He simply held a light cigarette in his mouth and let out smoke before answering. He said it would take another 3 hours to arrive. How was your side? Tran Tiu Thien arrogantly rolled her hand around her curls as a habit. She happily replied, Rest assured. I guarantee that in these 3 hours no one will win 3 matches. Indeed, the trend in martial arts is going like this. Yet another new name has been named as a referee. If the referee raises his hand in turn, the next winner will solemnly declare, the winner of this match is Luong Tanhoi. Regardless of what happens next in the martial arts competition, at this moment outside the stage there is Lang Van. Fong was so nervous that his legs were shaking. Seeing his confusing situation, the subordinate immediately asked, Mr. Lang, what's wrong? He unconsciously raised his finger to his mouth and wanted to bite his nail. An assumption arose in his heart. I felt something was wrong. Du Bin seemed to be doing something in the underworld. The person next to him immediately suppressed his spirit and said with assurance, Master, don't worry, you forgot we were there. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure approached from behind him. The eyes of the person chosen to compete appeared extremely excited. Following his appearance, the person next to Lang Vanfong finished his words, the secret weapon? The female referee looked at the name card and announced that the next match was. She raised her eyes and called out 2 names, Luong Tanhoi and Tong Hon. Tran Tiu Thien backstage was nervous. The martial arts competition was coming to its planned endpoint, sweat sliding down her cheeks with anxiety. She thought to herself, Luong Tanhoi and Tong Hon both won 2 matches. No matter who won this match, they needed Du Bin to fight. She didn't know if he would arrive in time. The 2 contestants stood in the center of the stands, faced each other and greeted each other, immediately after which the referee gave orders and prepared. The sound of the voice resounded through the speakers loudly announcing the start of the battle. Luong Tanhoi immediately took the initiative to start the battle. She rushed forward with a straight fist, carrying a heavy weight aimed straight at the opponent's chest. Tong Hon was not easy to deal with. He blocked her destructive power, using both hands to seal Luong Tanhoi's force. She wasn't surprised, but instead heaved a sigh of contempt and provoked him. This tactic was useless to me. After saying that, he immediately increased his strength, blocked Tong Hon's pressure, and pushed with a strong force that made him loosen both his hands from her body. Almost his whole face was stretched out in surprise at this move. Tong Hon was made to take a few steps back by her aura. His arm was pressed until it was scratched. He smiled and praised his opponent. Ms. Luong is really powerful. I didn't expect to be able to block my attack. Luong Tanhui's hands were still full of breath. She stood next to her body to keep her balance. She politely said, "You're not bad either." After saying that, she brandished a new move, still a powerful hand, then attacked that person. Her voice full of energy screamed loudly. This time, Tong Hon did not show his hands anymore. His eyes suddenly changed to serious. His own aura also flickered in his hand, radiating coldness around his body. With just enough breath, he immediately lowered his great compassion and rushed forward. In front of Luong Tanhui's eyes was not a breath that was easy to deal with, but a hand covered in Buddhist symbols of huge size flying straight towards her. Luong Tanhui knew that this huge thing would be difficult to destroy. She raised her hand to shake it, accepting it to block the obstruction. Looking at the ground destroyed along the path from Tong Hon's move, he calmly lowered his voice. "Seeing that you are a girl, I don't have the heart to hurt you. This guy only used 3 parts of his strength. How do you feel?" Luong Tanhui, with a heavy face, lightly hugged his hand and asked if he was a Buddhist disciple. Tong Hon didn't say much and immediately held the bracelet in his hands and said, "The next step is 5 points of effort. I advise Ms. Luong to admit defeat soon." Luong Tanhui immediately responded to his words, "Stop talking nonsense and worry about fighting." She hesitated and thought, half an hour less than the time agreed upon. I absolutely cannot admit defeat. At the same time, under the underworld, Du Bin breathed a sigh of relief and said to himself, thanks to the power of the 3 Diamla, he finally reached the 4th underworld. He looked at the desolate scene here again. The material had been destroyed to the point of losing its layout. Du Bin thought inexplicably, this place is so desolate, shouldn't Diamla 4 palaces be worried? Suddenly, from a small corner, there was a shadow of a person coming. A small old man peeked out, looked at the opposite side suspiciously and exclaimed, I didn't expect there to be any living beings coming here. Luong Tanhui, after a while of resisting to prolong the time, gradually felt exhausted. She was beaten until she fell to the ground. Her whole body was tired and sweating. Her blood could not circulate in time and she breathed heavily. On the other side, Tong Hon proudly smiled at her and teased her. Oh my god. It seems that the strongest person in Binhai is just that. Le Suyen sat in the stands and saw that the current situation was too dramatic. He was in a feverish mood and kept looking at the watch on his hand, thinking to himself, the appointment time with Du Bin was approaching. It was time to admit defeat. Thinking about it, she shouted down below to remind her, Ms. Luong, the match is almost over. No need to try anymore, just give up. Luong Tanhui already knew that. She couldn't bear it anymore. Her whole body was covered with bruises from her cheeks to her neck. She could only weakly hum. After that, Luong Tanhui trembled and slowly raised his hands, preparing to surrender. In his heart, he was determined to give up but was able to utter the word, I. The next second, with a rustling sound, someone rushed in. A hand quickly grabbed Luong Tanhui's neck, using force to push him up. She was immediately strangled by Tong Hon, causing Luong Tanhui's whole body to float in the air, trying to make it difficult for her to breathe. She was seriously injured and had given up, but was still attacked so relentlessly, she had no reason left, and was trying to find air to breathe. Tong Hon coldly let out a sentence in a low voice but full of contempt, admitting defeat, don't even dream. After speaking, he made another rustling sound and immediately let go of his hand, letting Luong Tanhui fall freely on the ground. Luong Tanhui was in so much pain, she curled up and complained in her heart. Damn, it hurts so much, I can't speak. Tong Hon took a step forward. He contemptuously and weakly continued to psychologically oppress the other person. Ms. Luong is truly stubborn. Since it's like this, she still refuses to admit defeat, so I'll continue fighting with you. He raised one hand, dangerously preparing to make a move. But no, Tong Hon instead used his foot to step straight on her stomach, not having time to react, causing her to scream. Outsiders also felt dissatisfied with this action. A pioneer man stood up and shouted, Is he still a man? The woman next to him also joined in. That's right. He clearly did it on purpose. The rest of the people in the audience also competed in shouting and vehemently protesting the behavior just now. It's okay to bully a weak girl. Jae-dong's people are truly shameless. Tong Hon did not care what they said, directly stating his point of view. It seemed that the people of Banhai had no talent except for that. I also like to preach morality. The rules of the contest are very clear. Just win, don't care about gender. Have you guys forgotten everything? Luong Tanhoi now stubbornly climbed up, his whole body trembling with each step. Tong Hon did not let her recover, so he attacked her, unintentionally shouting, "If Banhai's people are so useless, then don't blame me for being cruel." Then he rushed straight to the front. Luong Tanhoi knew he couldn't resist, so he put out his hands to defend. Suddenly, in this decisive moment of life and death, right where the two people were fighting for their lives, an object fell hard onto the ground, shaking the space like an atomic bomb, creating a huge explosion along with the wind. Thick smoke. When the explosion was about half gone, viewers in the audience were immediately curious about the situation below. In the weak fight for Luong Tanhoi, at this moment there was a hand holding Tong Hon's attacking hand, making Luong Tanhoi look on the edge of his seat and feel amazing. It was Du Bin. He stopped his hand and gently reminded him that winning or losing was clear. He should not chase or kill him. However, his eyes shone with suspicion, looking thoughtfully at this man and thinking, he didn't expect to be able to save the King of Hell in just one afternoon. This guy is really not simple. Remembering the previous time at the Hell Path, the 5 mandarins gave him an order and said, "You have finished fixing the Hell Path. This order is considered a thank you." Du Bin took the order and asked the old man curiously, "Why don't you listen to my orders? Do you think I'm not qualified?" King Go Kwan Diem Tin Kwan explained to him that between the demon world and humans, it made me feel very bored with the fighting in the human world. You are very strong, but I can feel that there are many secrets on your paper body. I don't want to get caught up in this. Du Bin wondered in surprise, his secret. Returning to the present, the important part of the martial arts competition had come. Tran Tiu Thien held the microphone and pretended to shout loudly. The most thrilling match is finally here. Tong Hwa and Du Bin. Who will win? Let's wait. Du Bin was the one who proactively opened the battle. He jumped up and advanced. Carrying a dark ghost king's aura, Du Bin descended from high above and gave Tong Hon a powerful blow. With a pop, Tong Hwa gently crossed his arms to block this attack. Du Bin himself felt when interacting with the opponent that the feeling was not right. It was like fighting with a steel plate. With another swipe of force, the other person counterattacked and launched a kick to his side with his foot. When it was Du Bin's turn to defend, he stepped aside neatly to avoid the thrust that was as high as his own. The distance he avoided caused him to step back. Du Bin decisively stepped back. Then he landed safely, some distance away from the opponent. Tong Hon put on a disdainful face, clasped his hands and made a golden light Buddha move, and commented, "Even my golden light can't beat me, let alone me." Du Bin had difficulty thinking. It was golden light again, but compared to Lang Vanfong's golden light, this one is much harder and thicker. Tong Hon on this side leisurely clasped his hands and guessed. I could see the scene of him crying and begging me to spare his life. Looking at the huge amount of golden light radiating around Tong Hon, Du Bin recognized this thing. The golden light overcomes demonic energy. It must be considered that Du Bin's murderous demonic aura and Tong Hon's spirit continuously chased each other, drawing many zigzag lines and exploding with each collision. The hand wearing the beaded bracelet radiated more aura, so Tong Hon immediately used the opportunity to throw a punch at the opponent. Du Bin simply took a neutral stance, using his bare hands to block this punch with murderous intent. The other hand, filled with murderous aura, immediately counterattacked against Tong Hon. He felt Du Bin's murderous aura approaching him. Tong Hon immediately used his vitality to create a pressure chamber, preventing Du Bin's murderous aura from affecting his body, so both auras reacted when they came into contact with each other. Du Bin's strong hand attacked Tong Hon's neck, was blocked by vitality, but still tried to press on, causing his vitality to be somewhat consumed and waiting to crack the protective layer of vitality. Know yourself. Song Hoon, who was about to be at a weak point in defense, quickly dodged towards the star, stopped a few big steps and was already 10 meters away from Bin. Boss Black looked at the classic fight scene and exclaimed in surprise. Oh my god, are these two people still human? Even I can't see clearly. Tong Hoon at this time seemed to enjoy cracking his neck and cracking it, using his style to speak loudly. Is this your power? The blind masseur downstairs in my house is much stronger than you. On the one hand, Bin relied on the recovery treatment system in the arm that had just used killing intent. One person calmly and politely replied to the other, thanking him for the compliment. The stray cat near my house is also much stronger than him. Bin glanced at the system screen to check. How many treatment points did he spend? He was surprised when this point cost 100,000 points, and he had a bad feeling in his heart. How come it took so much for him to attack them with just one move? Moreover, just exploring the underworld took too much damage, but now there's no time to clean it up. Immediately regaining his composure, Bin suddenly used his fangs to bite his finger until it bled, telling himself, it seems like we have to fight quickly and win quickly. He used his bitten finger to draw a few red card order lines, and wrote the order's name on his shirt. At the same time, Tong Hoon was in a position to concentrate his energy once more, the brilliant essence of Buddhism covering his body. Radiating a powerful yellow color, carrying a serious will to strike powerfully, preparing to challenge the opponent, and obediently accept death. And then the two confronted each other with their aura again. This time the aura was stronger. When it came into contact with each other it blocked even the fighting worm, revealing two clearly different colors of aura. Tong Hoon's offensive energy completely suppressed Bin's aura, causing his aura to falter for a moment. Day by day, the essence pressed closer and closer to Bin's body, causing him to have to resist even more. Bin cursed once, but could not fight back. While the fire was boiling, the system immediately appeared next to you with a reminder. Go Quanvong asked for help. Do you agree? Bin didn't think much. What he was most concerned about right now was the need to fight quickly. He directly pushed up and shouted loudly, agreeing, hurry up for me. Immediately, the aura of the kings of the palace appeared, assisting Bin in releasing his full power. This combination of rays pulled and pushed towards the opponent was a violent blow straight to Tong Hoon. When the anger attacked his body, he was unable to block it and was directly impacted. Created a huge explosion that bombarded the entire arena. The affected soil and rocks burst open and shot wildly in all directions. Smoke flew blindly. It was impossible to determine whether the other person had been defeated or not. There was smoke and dust in the distance. Gradually disappearing, a body of Tong Hoon appeared lying limply on the sunken ground, clutching his chest and panting in pain. I don't believe what I just endured. It's impossible. What I cultivate is the purest golden light of Buddhism. How can I not fight against evil spirits? Bin walked up to him, folded his arms and let out a sentence. Only when he was strong did he say who overpowered who, but if he was so weak, he wouldn't even be able to fight, so what should he say about me? Suddenly someone in the audience noticed something, shouted loudly and pointed to the front, saying, what is that? Bin heard, following the direction he pointed and everyone in the place looked. He saw Ngu Quanvong wearing neat clothes standing quietly on the clouds. He himself frankly did not think that he was still here, appearing like this, half believing and half suspecting, silently calling his name, Ngu Quanvong. I only saw him holding up the majestic spear and reading it out loud for a long time, Lang Van Fong, Doi Thuong Man, Tong Hoon. Disregarding people's lives, destroying the underworld, causing chaos in the underworld. Now this is La and the other three kings of hell, ruled that after death, you will be sent to the most evil hell, forever unable to escape. Lang Van Fong disdainfully wanted to expose Bin and shouted, Bin, don't think that you're here pretending to be a god and a ghost because I'm afraid of you. Without hesitation, Bin clapped his hands loudly, signaled the people in charge to do something, and said at the same time, of course I don't stop here. I also prepared a gift for my friends. Jae-dong came here from far away. Having said that, each female receptionist and glasses gave each person present in the VIP viewing room a file with an explanation. The Du family just refused to help him launder money, but he was angry and silently brought in people to help his people come forward instead of the Du family. Moreover, in order to prevent them from telling the story, he took all the money from the Lang family and arranged assassins to kill them. One of the prominent people received the documents, frowned and looked at them for a while. Lang Van Fong held a set of documents that he felt were redundant in his hand. His whole person ignored him, and said in the most contemptuous manner, "The glue is so bad, do you think they believe it? Are you stupid?" But without waiting for him to be arrogant for too long, the file was violently thrown to the ground by someone. An older man poked his bearded head and pointed at him, loudly scolding Lang Van Fong, "Whether it's a trick or not, we can think. We don't need you here to do crazy things." Another person leisurely looked at the documents and said, "If you've already crossed the bridge like that, then don't expect us to continue cooperating with the Lang family in the future." When Lang Van Fong heard that, his blood boiled and he crumpled the documents. In another corner not far from the tense room, someone was walking step by step along the stairs to the main arena. He walked to the front, following him the lights highlighted him. "Raising my majestic seal to declare, I declare in the name of the new head of the Lang family, to expel Lang Van Fong from the Lang family. Anyone who dares to cooperate with Lang Van Fong in the future will be the enemy of the family." Lang family. A few other guests took turns speaking in unison. If the Lang family said so, after I returned to Zedong, they would immediately terminate the contract with Lang Van Fong, and so would I. Even the audience was enthusiastic. Responding to the chanting in unison, we all listened to the new homeowner. Listen to the new homeowner. Listen to the new homeowner. The person claiming to be the new head of the Lang family approached Diu Bin and said, thank you, little Diu Jia." Diu Bin excitedly raised his hand and waved in response, "Don't thank me. These documents were all created by Miss Nun. She put in a lot of effort for you." After saying that, the other person cleared his throat and became serious again, preparing to say something else. He announced to everyone that I used my identity as the head of the Lang family to declare that the Lang Jae-dong family agreed that Diu Bin was the master of Wabak, and would always listen to his words. Other homeowners listening to him, he immediately responded positively, as did the Tian family. There was also the Go family, and we, the Lam family, supported Diu Bin. Diu Bin responded to everyone's support, waved again to say thank you. In this situation, Lang Van Fong himself cannot fight against so many people. He was so frustrated that he blurted out, "Let's go," and then retreated. His subordinate saw that and could only run after him and call him a few words. In the dark night, when he should have stayed at the martial arts festival to enjoy it to the fullest, Lang Van Fong and his subordinates drove all the way back. Lang Van Fong was so angry that he banged on the glass door. He cleared his throat and cursed a few words. "Those damn people. They clearly said they would help me, but with just a blink of an eye. Those guys were the owners." Suddenly, their car had to brake suddenly, and the sound of dragging wheels was deafening. Lang Van Fong was suddenly attacked. He leaned forward and immediately raised his hand to block his momentum. He got angry and annoyed and scolded his subordinate, "What kind of car are you driving?" The subordinate showed a scared face. It wasn't because of hearing him scold that he was frightened, but because of the horrifying scene right before his eyes. His trembling words gradually became ambiguous. There were too many remains. As soon as he finished speaking, a few misty arms appeared on Lang Van Fong's side of the window, tapping on the glass, causing him to look out in horror. Dozens of anonymous mists covered their car. The people in the car were now screaming out of fear and sitting dead inside the car. In the distance, there were 4 great kings observing the situation. Among them Tan Quang Vong and So Jiang Vong were arguing with each other. So Jiang Vong commented with interest, "It's been a long time since I've come to this world to play. As expected, the air here is more fragrant than in the underworld." Tan Quang Vong immediately counterattacked and teased, "This guy, he smells so good." Beside Diu Bin suddenly appeared, and indifferently and curtly asked Go Quan Vong if he had caught him yet. Go Quan Vong immediately spread out 2 withered souls in his hands, carelessly explaining that their lifespan had not yet ended. We can't do anything, so we can only send these two guys to hell to do hard labor. The people next to Go Kwan Vong had been silent until now, but when they saw the old dirty little soul come out, they sighed in boredom and said, "Before, he caused chaos in my hell, he should compensate me." At this point, Dieu Bin no longer had any more concerns, he comfortably yawned. Then turned around, waved to the others and said goodbye. "The rest is left to you guys. I have to go to sleep." When they heard you leave, they respectfully replied, "Mr. Dieu." Soon after, Dieu Bin's house had an unexpected guest visit. Dieu Bin lazily leaned back in the living room chair, calmly asked the guest in front of him. He did not expect that he would come to this Bin Hai. "It's Hugh Boy's father." He created a box with a yin-yang shaped lid and presented it conveniently. "Now your reputation has spread throughout the three worlds. How can I live in peace? This time I came here because there was something I wanted to tell you." He opened the box lid and presented, "I know I have made a mistake to Hugh Boy and her mother, so this is the last thing I can do for them." The yin-yang box was opened and inside was a small doll mannequin wearing a red dress, looking extremely unique and eye-catching. He pushed the box forward a bit and said, "This special doll can absorb souls, allowing them to live like humans. But next year, the dolls of this country will fight, and because of that, the soul will be super happy. Whether you want Hugh Boy to use it or not is up to you to decide." Dieu Bin seriously looked at the doll mannequin, his expression gradually becoming more thoughtful than ever. Then he stood up, determined his strength and decisively said, "Let Hugh Boy decide this matter himself." A long time later, the doll remained in the same position on the table, no one tried to touch it. Dieu Bin told Hugh Boy and his mother everything, then concluded, "That's how it happened." When mother and son heard it, they felt sorry for themselves and hugged each other sobbing for a while. When Hugh Boy heard what happened, she worried for a while, then raised her head and forced a smile to speak to Dieu Bin. "I'm willing, let me into this doll world," she thought to herself, "even if it's just for 5 years, at least I can stay by your side for a little longer." At Ko Vin Mountain, Dieu Bin and Hugh Bo's old father drove to the side of the mountain. They both found a place where their profiles matched and then chose to stop and consider the situation. The man probed and asked Dieu Bin, "Are you sure the ghost is Lang Van Fong?" He replied leisurely, "A few days ago So Jiang Vong told me he had escaped from the underworld, and then the underworld demons appeared. Besides him, who else is there?" Then the man pointed his finger in the distance, where there was a small building hidden in the canopy of trees and a space of green nature. He let out a series of observations about the direction he was heading. Lang Van Fong was now only a half-demon. If he wanted to become an earth demon, he must go find De Luan. De Luan kept it in the extreme branch gate. The Vin family is the one guarding that place. You must definitely find the middle pole gate before him. Dieu Bin walked towards him and asked him curiously, "Aren't you coming with me?" He immediately turned away and refused. He said that the Vin family is very strange. "I don't want anything to do with them. If you meet them, be careful, don't offend them." Dieu Bin paused the conversation. He took the initiative to leave first, waving his hand as if he understood. "I know, I'm leaving." A short while later, Dieu Bin committed suicide and went straight into the forest to explore. From behind suddenly came a monster, intending to attack from behind and attack Dieu Bin. He used the afterglow to reflect, turned slightly and then swung the evil attack, decisively impacting the monster, causing it to disintegrate into bones. Slime spilled out from the monster's lair and stuck to Dieu Bin's hand. He looked at the slime flowing on his hand and scoffed contemptuously, "So disgusting. Where did Lang Van Fong go to find so many monsters?" On the left, there was another unclear rustling sound. Dieu Bin exhaled a self-determined alert rhythm and came again. He chose to run away to find a place to hide, not wanting to lose his evil energy for the time being. Luckily, he found a small cave not long ago. Dieu Bin felt a moment of joy in his heart. There was a cave and he could hide there for a while. As soon as he entered the cave, he encountered slight ripples in the water surface. Dieu Bin used a spirit lamp to observe inside the cave. The sound inside continuously echoed in rhythmic clicks and clicks. Before his eyes was a large expanse of bright water flowing along the stone glaze. Dieu Bin wondered, is there a river? Becoming alert to the new terrain, Dieu Bin stuck a small talisman on the temple, ready to explore the cave. He heard some other strange sounds coming into contact with the water surface, which sounded not like the sounds of nature but made by some object. Dieu Bin deduced that there seemed to be someone living here, Lang Van Fong. Taking a few more steps, he suddenly discovered a strange scene, so strange that it made his ears and cheeks turn red. The surprise, panic and shyness all gathered together and his cheeks turned pink to red like tomatoes. Dieu Bin choked out two words, which were how vivid the scene in front of him was, the young girl. Her long, soft hair hangs loose, her plump, naked body floats in the water. It's almost impossible to understand why the water in that area can be so hot that it emits a misty bone smoke, helping the graceful young girl to leisurely wash this pure white body. Dieu Bin was bewildered and could not control himself as he continued to step forward, touching the barrier that the girl had created. The barrier that was attacked immediately reacted and created a thick, hard-to-hear sound. Hearing the warning, the young girl suddenly turned around. Her delicate hands only had time to cover those plump cotton mounds. Her whole body tensed up and shouted loudly, "Who?" After the young girl's scream of panic, both people looked at each other silently without blinking. The space gradually became uncertain. Neither of the two figures did anything to the other, nor said a word. Because she was so afraid of Dieu Bin's moment of silence and his stare like an arrow that wanted to pierce the other person's heart, the beautiful young woman took the initiative to hesitate a few breaths and ask first, "Sir?" Dieu Bin only now regained consciousness about his rude actions. His face heated up. He quickly raised his hand to cover his eyes. The other hand waved away to justify, "I didn't do it on purpose, I'll leave now." The young girl seized the opportunity to cover his eyes and quickly grabbed her robe. She temporarily put on her coat, successfully covering her body's beauty, wanting to be serious and straightforward in asking about the other person's appearance. Why did he come here? Dieu Bin had just relieved half of his shyness. He suppressed his personal emotions and wanted to ask the girl's identity in return, which she was. The young girl skillfully reminded him of her identity. "I am Bak Nun Nun. I have always practiced in seclusion on Ko Vin Mountain, all for the sake of her." Dieu Bin seemed to have discovered something. He interrupted the girl. "You were always here, so you must know where the central gate is." Bak Nun Nun realized the true heart he wanted to reach for. Her eyes momentarily revealed surprise. Then her whole body radiated a deep, dark aura. Her hands tightly grasped the edge of her robe. Her face filled with disappointment as she said, "Have you come to find the gate of the middle pole?" Dieu Bin didn't understand anything, so he answered in a serious and stiff manner, "Since the devil has appeared, I must find De Luan before him or else the world will be in chaos. If you know where the final gate is, tell me where." Bak Nun Nun felt like giving up. She gradually let her mind sink down. She ignored the current goal he was aiming for. Also ignore the superficial way he didn't pay attention to her previous moods and memories. Bak Nun Nun sat down on a flat stone pedestal nearby, half closed her eyes and softly said, "So you go, I don't know." Dieu Bin did not let go of her unpredictable emotions, urgently asked Bak Nun Nun, "Listen to me, this is very serious." Suddenly, Bak Nun Nun's face changed. She stood up and waved her hand, pointing straight at Dieu Bin. She was so angry, "Get out." Seeing that she was upset, Dieu Bin immediately obeyed and turned his back on her. He muttered to himself, "That's so cruel." Only Bak Nun Nun remained sad. She lowered her head slightly, extremely regretfully, and told him that he had indeed forgotten everything. Dieu Bin turned around once more, standing opposite the young girl sitting, letting her think, absent-mindedly looking at the tip of his shoe. He spoke up and explained in detail. "I was sure I had never met her before, but she seemed to know me." From now on, Bak Nun Nun revealed an aloof expression that was difficult to please. She turned her face away and flatly denied it. Her words were also somewhat superficial and heartless. "I don't understand what you're saying." Suddenly, Dieu Bin approached her and reached out to touch the area behind her, trying to stop her from looking straight at himself. He seriously criticized the person in front of him. She was also a cultivator, so she must have clearly understood what the consequences would be if De Luan fell into the hands of the devil. Bak Nun Nun still stubbornly resisted and replied, "What does it have to do with me?" Du Bin and her returned to the state of looking at each other aimlessly. A moment of silence passed. Du Bin helplessly dropped the arm that had just hung next to Bak Nun Nun. He took out a small, short wooden stick and offered a few words of persuasion to Bak Nun Nun. "If you want to provide any clues to break this wooden stick, you can contact me. Now Ko Vin Mountain is surrounded by monsters, you quickly leave here." Having finished speaking, he didn't care whether the other person took the wooden stick or not, and simply turned around and left. Du Bin tested her heart. He was gradually approaching the cave entrance. Sure enough, before he had walked much, Du Bin heard the sound of hesitant feet running towards him. He rolled his eyes and looked back. Intentionally turned around to see what Bak Nun Nun would reveal, but only saw her softly asking a question, "Do you really not remember anything?" Du Bin was confused by her words. He could not remember any memories of his relationship with this beauty. His eyebrows furrowed, extremely unconvinced. He asked Bak Nun Nun, "What do you think I should remember?" Bak Nun Nun looked sad. She gave in to his naivety and now dared to say what she knew. "I don't know where Chung Kai Mon is, neither do the people of the Vin family. In this world only Emperor Tun knows where it is." She firmly affirmed, and that person was Emperor Venerable. Yes, she clearly remembered the appearance of the person who was called Emperor Venerable at that time. Completely coincided with Du Bin's appearance and aura right now, so she longed for some reminder from him. But he didn't have any memories left. After hearing Bak Nun Nun's answer, he was so surprised that he gasped. Bak Nun Nun remembers that at that time, Du Bin was a high-ranking emperor, with a majestic appearance riding a strange beast to look at the country. At that time, when she was by his side, she innocently and honestly climbed on top of the strange man and looked up to praise him, the emperor, who had finally killed the devil. Once seated on the back of the beast, sitting next to her Emperor Tun, Bak Nun Nun was interested in asking about a few things about the future. What does Emperor Tun want to do in the future? At that time, he said, very calmly, that the evil spirits have been eliminated, because I am too strong and can hurt people. So I want to save the world. You must protect this Ko Vin Mountain. Wait for me to return. Bak Nun Nun suddenly woke up from the depths of the past. She boldly hugged Du Bin. Excitedly cried out, "Your Majesty, I have finally waited for you."